In this video, I'm going to show you how to Mozey. We're going to split this video into 3 sections. We're going to work on the intro, then we're going to work on the breakdown / build up, then we're going to work on the fake drop, and then the drop. But before we do all that, there's a few things we need to set up. So firstly, we need to decide what BPM to choose. So Mozey typically does fast jump up drum and bass. So I've gone for a BPM of 178, and you can even push it up to 180 if you like. Next, I've decided what key I'm going to use, and in this case, I'm using D minor. And we'll get into that a bit more later on. And then finally, I've downloaded a Mozey reference track, and I've put it in my reference track slot at the top here. And then I've just made sure it's in time, so the drop hits here with the drop of my track, and you can see it's in time there. And to make it in time, you either just match it to the BPM, so this track is already 178 BPM, or you come here, right click, auto detect, type in the BPM, and then type in the BPM of the track. So the track is 178 BPM. But if the track was 180 BPM, you type in 180, and then that would match up, and then you'd go resample and click E3 generic to make sure the pitch is the same. And if you're on like Ableton, it's a similar process. I believe you use the Complex Pro tool in the bottom. So once you've got your reference track set up along the top, there is one more trick I like to do, but you can only do this currently on FL Studio. So this is the beta of FL Studio. I don't think it's out on the actual FL Studio yet, so I'll leave a link down below, but depending on what time you're watching this video, it may have changed. So what you do is you go to the top left here of the reference track, and there should be this option here that says extract stems from sample, and then I can extract these drums, or the bass, or the vocals, or the instruments. But I tend to just go for the drums, and then it extracts them, and then you should be left with something like this. And it literally gives you like what the drums sound like. So you've got an even more refined reference track to go with. And that's so helpful because the drums are the most important part of the track. And if you can get your drums right, it's normally easy sailing from then onwards. So now that everything is set up, let's work on the intro. So the first thing you want to do in the intro is set up some drums. And this can be really simple. You can literally use a sample like I have here, and you just want to get your hi-hats to sound something like this. And you can even go for something more simple like Mozey has here. So let me play what Mozey sound like. It's just a bunch of hi-hats put together. So there may be like 2 or 3 different hi-hats playing together. And then you can change like the frequency on the hi-hats to make it sound like it's bouncing around and more groovy. So once you've got the intro drums and they're playing for 16 bars, as you can see here, it's time to work on an ARP. So what Rompler means is the synth itself, which I'm using Nexus for. How it routes instruments is it puts samples of instruments in and then combines them together and then creates a synth with that, rather than you like tweaking knobs to create something like on Serum. This just puts instruments all together and then creates a sound through that. So it could be like live recording of instruments. And what I've done is I've found an instrument that sounds like this, and then another instrument that sounds like this, and then I've layered them together and they're just copying each other. So let's have a look at how I've created this ARP. So it's following a 4-chord progression, as you can see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And each section lasts 2 bars long. And it's in D minor. So what you can do to help you is you can come up here and you can go View, and then you can click Scale Highlighting, and then select D, and then you can select a minor. So I've got minor natural. And then if you click this little button here, when you click things down, it'll only put things in that D minor scale. So I've made an ARP, and an ARP just stands for arpeggiator. So you go on this mode and you create fast notes like this in a row, following the scale of D minor, and then you switch it up each time into a new scale in D minor. So I've started with D minor, then I've gone to A sharp, then I've gone to F, then I've finished on C. And each one is following the same pattern. So depending on what key you're in, experiment with this and see what you can come up with. But this is what my one sounds like. So I'll play it for you and then you can experiment with your own and see what you can come up with. And then that literally just repeats for the entire 16 bars. Next, we have some effects. So these are effects, really simple effects. It's just a white noise playing for one of them, and then we've got some rain playing for the other one. And then at the end of the 16 bars, we've got a white noise riser that comes in. Really, really simple. And these are just really quiet and in the background. And you'll notice as well on the ARP that there's not much processing going on, just a bit of reverb and maybe a little bit of delay, and that's all. So after the first 8 bars, we introduce some vocals. Now these are like vocal backings, so they're not the main vocal. So I found a sample pack with, I think there were like 5 or 6 different stems to download, and one of them had this like backing style wet vocal, and I just added some more reverb onto it, as you can see here. And then to do all my processing with vocals, I use this Waves plugin, which I find really useful. I believe it's called Clar Vocals. So this is what it sounds like with all the elements in and the vocal. And then you'll also notice that I've added in another riser, and this is a vocal riser. So listen to this. And I believe that adds to the white noise riser here and just makes it sound cohesive. And these are really easy to find just on Splice. There's loads of them. Doesn't need to match the vocal here. It can just be a separate one. And then also Mozey here, he has like I'm not exactly sure what they are. I think they're like percussion tom drums that play like this. And then he has like a big impact on the breakdown. So you could try adding in some of them as well if your transition into your breakdown doesn't feel as smooth yet. So that is the intro complete. Now let's move on to the breakdown and build up. So this is going to be another 16 bars, 8 bars breakdown, 8 bars build up. And let's look into the breakdown first. So to start with, you need to have some impacts. So you've got this impact that Mozey uses. And then I've added my own ones here as well. So I've got, just from some sample packs, an impact like this. And then an impact like this. Pretty similar. And then I've continued the white noise and the rain effects all the way through for another 16 bars. And then I've put this riser in as well, just before the fake drops begins. But what do we do that's different? So in the breakdown, we take out all the drums. There's no drums at all. And then we add in the main vocal sample. So this is literally just a main vocal. There's loads of them on Splice. If you want to find a really good sample, you have to dig deep on Splice for literally hours before you find something. Or you can sing yourself or hire a vocalist. It's up to you how you get your vocals. Just make sure they're really high quality. So this is what these vocals sound like.
Open up the sky, hypnotize the stars. There was light in both our eyes. It was brighter than the day.
So you hear the rain in the background, and I did add this little, it's like a harmony below the first part, but then the second part sounded rubbish, so I just had to leave it for the first part. So I might remove that later, or I might keep it in. I think it sounds alright. And then this is the important part with the breakdown. The instruments change. Now, I've actually gone for some samples here that I've just found on Splice, and I've used the Splice bridge to look through samples. So if you don't know about the Splice bridge, it's just a tool that you activate on Splice, and then you add it in onto one of your channels, and then it connects to FL Studio, and then you can just run through all your presets and change the key at the bottom to match D minor and have your track playing, and then you can find samples and then drag them in, and it pitch adjusts them to D minor. So it's an easy way of finding more sounds that fit your track without having to just scroll through stuff that's in D minor. And I've managed to find some really cool samples using this method. And you may be thinking, oh, but shouldn't I create them like I've created the ARP? You can do that, but this just saves time, and often the sounds will sound better than what you could create. So I've picked a pad, and then I've got like a supporting pluck over the top of the pad. So let's hear what this sounds like all together.
Open up the sky, hypnotize the stars. There was light in both our eyes. It was brighter than the day.
So that just keeps playing, and then this repeats here, and then I take the last bar of the section here and then repeat it here, here, and here before it stops. And I do the same with these new elements I've introduced. So this, I've introduced this, and then EQ'd out any of the low end because I thought that sounded pretty cool. And then I also added another pad to go with this pad. And then just done exactly the same there, and then it fades off. So together they sound like this. And then we get this nice progression. So the build up doesn't just sound the same as the breakdown. We're adding new elements and keeping it moving. And then we also do a little switch up with the vocals. So I found like another little vocal that kind of fit in nicely here, and then another vocal here that fit in, and I just arranged it so that there was no glaring gaps in my vocal. And then what I've done is made some build-up drums. So let's have a look at these build-up drums. So I'm just going to play them for you. So it's really, really simple. So it's just a kick drum playing every beat, as you can see. And I've made the kicks shorter for the first 4 bars. And then it goes to normal drum progression, just taken from the drop. And then faster drums before it fades out before the drop. And then with the snare, we've added the snare faster than the kick, but we've EQ'd it in with this filter, so you can't really hear it. And then the filter just comes off for this part. And then we've added in the hi-hats here, but we've also filtered these in gradually, so it doesn't sound too aggressive. And then they fade off, so it sounds like this. And then I've also found this cool little build-up loop off Splice, which fits in nicely in the background. And just adds that kind of depth that it needs. So let's listen to it all together now.
Open up the sky, hypnotize the stars. There was light in both our eyes. It was brighter than the day. So take me up, up, and open up the sky. Take me up, 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 and open up the sky.
So that is the breakdown and build up done. Now if you want to be able to make tracks like this really fast, I've actually got a free music production training video down below in the description. So I recommend you sign up and take the training, and that will help drastically improve your music and help you to start making bangers. But now let's go into the bit that Mozey loves to do, and that is the fake drop before the actual drop comes in. So this is actually really simple. All I've done is I found another cool sounding synth on Splice, and then I've used that for the fake part here, and then I've pitched it up here, keeping the sustained note with build-up drums again, and then a snare hits and it goes into the drop. So let me play it so you can hear it, and then I'll go through each section and then you can recreate it. Now I recommend looking for samples, and if you can't find anything, then try and create something on Serum. But I just thought this sample worked really well, so I went for it. And then it goes into the drop. So let's look at the drums. Again, it's really simple. It's just the kick drum hitting every step before the snare drum comes in one beat before, and everything else stops. And then we've just got the drums, and then they're filtered in as well, so that it doesn't take too much away when the drop actually hits. And then we've just got the hats, which are filtered in, just so it doesn't take too much away when they drop. So that sample is literally just like a pad loop fly that I found in a really cool drum and bass pack. So now let's look at the drop. So let's go through the drums, and then we'll go through the basses. So the drums are really simple. It's just the usual way of making drum and bass drums. So you place 2 kick drums like this down, and then you move the second kick drum along 2 steps like that, and then just duplicate them throughout, just like that. And then the snare drum just hits every other beat. So on the second and the 4th beat. And then that just copies as well. So it should sound like this. Now I always mix my kick drum at -15, and then I mix everything else below that. So we've then added some hi-hats. So this hi-hat comes in every 3rd beat and then repeats. And then we've got a hi-hat that comes in every single beat. And then I've found some loops. So this loop here, which is actually copied from the intro, and then I've just adjusted some of the levels and EQ'd it slightly differently. And then I've got another hat loop underneath, which is massively EQ'd, and just sort of, as you can see here, and just sort of in the background to give it even more bounce and rhythm. And there you have it. They're the drums. Now, obviously, you can do like transition effects and every 8 bars and every 16 bars to add movement and rhythm to the track. But what I recommend you do is you just check out your reference track, get those reference drums downloaded, and then see what they do. And you can copy what they do or use that as advice, and then make your own unique rhythm change and transition. So let's have a look at the basses now. So essentially what I've done here is I've gone for that really gritty Mozey sound, and then I've just gone through my Serum presets and tried to create Serum sounds that just sound as filthy as possible, because that's pretty much what Mozey does, let's be honest. And then all it's done is I've found, I think there's 4 different basses here, and then there's a sub bass underneath each one. So I'm just going to go through the patches really quickly, and then if you want to copy any, feel free. Most of them are also available in my sample packs on my website, and there's a link below if you want to get them. So this first bass, I've actually made a tutorial on this bass separately. I'll leave a link here if you want to watch that. But this is how it's made, and then you can see the post-processing. All I've got is kickstart, which is just side-chaining it, and then EQ, cutting out the bass so that the sub can go below it. And this is what the sub bass looks like. So there's just all sorts going on with this one. And then the second bass. So this is just like this. Then the effects. This is just on the master tune, but it's turned off, so it's not doing anything. Don't worry about that. And then this is the master tune here. So LFO1 is on here, and then it's on 3, I think. And you just go in here and master tune for that. And then we've got the post-processing on the bass number 2. So we've got an OTT, a Decimort 2, a Trash 2, and that's on multiband settings. So you can see here, cheap digital. And then number 3, cracked actress, and we've brought the dry wet mix down a little bit. And then we've got a Pro Q2 boosting some low end, and then this EQ here cutting out the low end because the sub is going underneath it. And then we have this bass, which is just like a gritty, disgusting bass. It looks something like this. As you can see. And then bass 3 is pretty similar. We don't have the OTT turned on. We've got the same Decimort 2 on, the same Trash 2 on. And then we've got the same EQ on as well. And I turned off the kickstart here because it was interfering with the way I wanted the bass to sound. And then we've also got this random bass at the end, which I added in, which I thought was pretty cool. Turn it up a little bit. But this is a bit confusing, to be honest. But I'll go for it for you anyway if you want to try and copy it. And then that extra bass is just going back into bass 2, I believe. The same processing. And there we have the track. So these notes are playing around about the same key. It is a bit different because these can change the key. So you just got to be careful when you do stuff like this. Like this sync button can actually change the note it's playing. And it won't always be what's showing here. But you can see the sub bass is in D. And this is in D sharp, but it's actually playing a D. And then you've got all these other notes here. There's not many notes being played, but this is playing D sharp, then D, and you can see that it is because the sub is in that note as well. So the matching it with the sub is a good way to find out what note is actually playing, because your sub should always be in the note that is being played. And the same with like this one as well. So that's playing D sharp and the sub's in D sharp. So it's pretty much just switching between Ds and D sharps, and then the notes are changing. And there we have the tune complete. Now, I haven't actually finished the track all the way, but I actually have some really powerful methods at finishing tracks fast. And if I were to then go and finish this, I could finish it in half an hour with some of these methods. And if you want to learn more about that, again, you can watch the free music production workshop below. So that is the entire track complete. Now let's listen to it all the way through.